If you think you know what courage looks like, wait until you hear how a quiet girl, slapped in front of 200 students, rose with a smile, exposed every bully in the school, and turned the entire crowd against the very people who tried to break her. Before you dive in, make sure to subscribe for more jaw-dropping stories that twist reality in ways you'll never see coming. Aisha Malik had always been the kind of student who blended into the background, the girl teachers praised for her neat homework but never noticed in a crowd, the girl who never talked back, never raised her voice, never broke the rules, quiet, ordinary, invisible, and that invisibility was exactly why the bullies chose her as the perfect target. They assumed a girl who stayed silent would stay weak forever, but they had no idea what kind of storm she carried beneath that calm surface, a storm that would detonate in the most unexpected way, in front of 200 students, changing her school's history forever. It all began on a Monday morning when the entire senior class gathered in the courtyard for what was supposed to be a normal assembly, but tensions had been high all week because of a rumor that Aisha had snitched on the school's most notorious bully trio, Sana, Mira, and their self-appointed leader, Zara, three girls who strutted around like royalty, who treated the school like their personal kingdom, who believed fear was the only language worth speaking. Aisha had done nothing of the sort. In fact, she had gone out of her way to stay out of their path, but a teacher who overheard Zara bragging about stealing exam papers mistakenly assumed Aisha had reported them, and once the rumor spread, the bullies latched onto it with glee. That morning, as Aisha stood in line with the other students, hugging her books close to her chest, Zara marched toward her with the kind of smirk that spelled disaster, Mira and Sana flanking her like shadows. Students instantly sensed drama and stepped back to form a natural circle, eager for spectacle, hungry for someone else's humiliation because nothing entertained them more. Aisha tried to move away, but Zara grabbed her wrist, yanked her forward, and sneered loud enough for the entire courtyard to hear, "So, you think you can ruin our lives and walk away, huh?" Aisha opened her mouth to deny it, but before she could speak, Zara slapped her hard, a sudden, sharp crack that echoed across the courtyard, silencing even the breeze, stunning the teachers at the far end, freezing 200 students in shock as Aisha's head snapped to the side and her books scattered across the ground. It should have been the moment she collapsed, the moment she cried, the moment she shrank away as everyone expected, but instead, Aisha lifted her head slowly, touched her cheek where Zara's handprint burned red, and smiled. Not a mocking smile, not a frightened one, but a calm, controlled, terrifyingly steady smile that made Zara's confidence flicker for a split second, because bullies thrive on predictable reactions, fear, tears, submission, and Aisha gave her none of them. "Feel better?" she asked softly, her voice steady enough to make the surrounding students whisper in disbelief. Zara scoffed, thrown off but unwilling to bend, and grabbed Aisha's collar to force another slap, but this time Aisha caught her wrist midair, gripping it with surprising strength. The crowd gasped. Zara jerked back, horrified that the quiet girl dared touch her. "You want a story," Aisha said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Let me give you one." What happened next would be replayed in whispers for years. Aisha stepped back, picked up her books one by one without breaking eye contact, then stood on a nearby bench so every student could see her, and began speaking, not in anger, but in a clear, commanding tone that sliced through the courtyard like a blade, recounting every instance of bullying she had witnessed in the school over the past 3 years, not just against herself but against dozens of younger students whose names she remembered, whose tears she never forgot. She exposed Zara's exam paper theft, Sana's locker-breaking racket, Myra's anonymous harassment messages, listing dates, witnesses, screenshots she had saved not for revenge but because she documented everything out of habit, never imagining she would need to use it. Students gasped, some stepping away from the bullies, some recording, some whispering, "Is this true?" But Aisha wasn't done. She turned toward the teachers, calling out the ones who ignored complaints, the ones who looked away to avoid confrontation, the ones who punished victims instead of aggressors. The vice principal stepped forward to stop her, but Aisha raised her voice over the speaker system that a sympathetic student had secretly turned on for her, ringing her words across the courtyard. "We pretend our school is safe because no one speaks up. Well, today, I'm speaking. And if anyone here has ever been bullied, harassed, humiliated, or threatened by these girls, step forward." For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then one girl stepped out of the crowd. Then another. Then 5. Then 20. Then almost 50 students formed a semicircle behind Aisha, trembling but resolute, and the bullies, for the first time in years, found themselves facing a united front instead of an isolated victim. Zara tried to laugh it off, claiming everyone was lying, but Aisha cut her off with the ultimate twist. She revealed she had emailed all her evidence, not only to the school board, but to a well-known education inspector who happened to be visiting that very day for an evaluation. At that exact moment, the inspector's assistant walked into the courtyard holding a tablet and announced they had already seen the evidence, and an immediate investigation was being launched. The crowd erupted into murmurs as the color drained from Zara's face, and when security was called to escort the bullies to the office, more than one student clapped, not out of cruelty, but out of relief. But the story didn't end there. After school, as Aisha walked home alone, she heard footsteps behind her and braced herself, expecting someone angry, but instead it was Zara's younger sister, a shy ninth grader, who burst into tears and hugged her, thanking her for doing what no one else had ever dared, saying she herself had been bullied at home by Zara and had been too scared to speak. Aisha comforted her, realizing in that moment that bullies often came from broken places themselves, but that didn't excuse their actions. What mattered was change. The next day, the school held an emergency assembly where the principal publicly apologized for years of negligence and announced strict anti-bullying reforms inspired by Aisha's courage. Teachers who ignored complaints were suspended, students who had suffered were offered counseling, anonymous reporting systems were set up, and Aisha, who never sought fame, was offered a leadership role in the new Student Justice Board. Her response to being slapped had done more than defend herself, it had inspired an entire school to rise. A month later, Zara and her friends issued written apologies after mandatory behavioral counseling, and though Aisha didn't trust them again, she accepted the apology, not for their sake, but for her own peace. By the time graduation arrived, Aisha walked across the stage to a standing ovation, not because she was the loudest, bravest, or strongest girl, but because she proved that sometimes the quietest voice can cause the biggest change, and sometimes a single moment, a slap meant to humiliate, can become the spark that burns down an entire culture of fear and replaces it with strength. And long after she left that school, her story lingered in halls, whispered to every new student who felt small or scared. Do you know about the girl who was slapped in front of 200 students, and smiled? For that smile didn't mean weakness, it meant the beginning of a revolution.